Tonight's show is brought to you by The Mother Road, Ben Daddy Optics, and you, our listeners. Now there you get into that argument. Is it soda or is it pop? Depends on if you're in the Midwest or from the South. I mean, I don't know. It's a stupid argument because where I'm from, everyone calls it a Coke, even if they're buying a Mountain Dew. What is up, all of you wayward souls, and welcome back to the Wayward Stories podcast. Wayward Stories is the podcast where we tell the tales of our adventures and our wanderings and our wonderings. How's everyone doing tonight? Are you shocked? I am shocked. What's going on, Justin? We've been dropping episodes like once every 3 months for the last, year? It's only been like a week or 2 weeks. I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to drop this. I may save it. I probably won't. I'll probably just publish it because I'm kind of obsessive, compulsive like that. Well, what's going on is, I don't know. Less homework. School's wrapping up. Only 2 weeks to go. And I've pretty much already out ahead and got most of my stuff done. So I just have more time and it's crazy. I'm not sure what to do with it just exactly yet. But one thing we can do is make an episode. And I went and reconciled an issue in my explorations of Oklahoma that I had been needing to reconcile for some time yesterday. And so we're going to talk about what that is. Any of you who read titles, again, before you start the episode, know what this is about. I don't yet. Actually, I know we're going to do Route 66 tonight from Tulsa to... I don't know. Maybe OKC. Maybe we'll go all the way to Texola and the Texas border. Because I've already done that part. I just never had enough to turn it into a full episode yet. The issue is a whole lot's going on from Tulsa to OKC to talk about, so it depends. If this gets really long, we may stop it at an episode from Tulsa to OKC and then do one from OKC to Texola, or we might just go the distance tonight. We'll see how the episode progresses. As for housekeeping, you guys please rate, review, and subscribe. Rate and review. Rate and review, if you would be so kind. And we'll just leave it with that. It's really important. If you guys want to get in touch with me, mywaywardstory@gmail.com, or head over to waywardstories.com and check out the website. You know what? Before we get started, I have a question for you guys. Where do I exist in your mind? In my mind, the podcast exists out there on the open road in the middle of the night. I don't know exactly how to explain that. And I just thought about this the other day because I heard someone else talking about this on a different podcast. Not mine, a different one. I was just listening. And I was like, oh, wow, I've never really thought about. But I do. I have a place in my head that this podcast exists. And where it exists is out there on the long, lonesome stretches of the interstate, somewhere out in the desert. In the middle of the night, on a long road trip somewhere, that's where this podcast exists in my mind. I guess it's always been conceived that way, and maybe it's because that's what I think of when I think of talk radio. Like, I came up on Art Bell and Coast to Coast AM. Even if you're not into the woo-woo stuff, Coast to Coast AM was classic radio. Art Bell's voice was great. He was a great interviewer. His guests were psycho, a lot of them, but it was always entertaining. It was an experience. It wasn't just listening to a show. It was an experience. Midnight in the desert. He broadcast from the desert. He talked at night. He interviewed in the middle of the night. Like, it's late night talk radio, and it's good talk radio, not like boring stuff about politics. It was stuff about it was about the woo, but it was fascinating. And maybe that's why in my mind, that's where I exist, because I loved that so much. I know that's when I love to listen to podcast and talk radio. I still listen to Art Bell, for God's sakes. You can find where people have put archived episodes into podcast. It's wonderful. And in my mind, that's where I exist. I don't know. I'm just curious when you guys listen, when you're out there on your road trips. Let me know, mywaywardstory.com. But in my head, there's a whole mythos here. The Wayward Sun exists somewhere out there in the ethers. But yeah, that's just a little quick one-off to start the show. I was just thinking philosophically the other day. So let's just get into tonight's show. Let's get right to it. I gave you guys an extended, lengthy update on my life last week. The only things I have coming up that are out of the ordinary anytime soon is I've got a lecture I'm going to give in a couple of places, Boston Mountain Historical Society and here at the Fort Smith Museum of History in October about Ozark Mountain witchcraft, which is fascinating and will actually probably end up being our spooky season episode, is I will probably talk about basically all the research I've done and what I've uncovered because it's super fun and it can be applicable to adventures and exploring out there in the world. And also I'm giving my lecture on the archaeology done at Fort Smith for the Fort Smith Historical Society at the public library here in a couple of weeks. So other than that, and getting ready to wrap up school, there's not a lot going on over here right now. Except trying to find employment. If anyone out there needs an anthropologist on staff, give me a call. Holla at your boy. Anyway, on to tonight's show. So we're going to talk about Route 66. I told you guys last week, next year is the 100-year anniversary of Route 66, and I decided I should get all my Route 66 ducks in a row, as it were, to be prepared for the inevitable influx of listeners that are going to come piling into the foyer looking for wayward stories, but not really. But I'm kind of OCD. I like projects. I like being creative. So that's what we're doing. We're getting all of our ducks in a row. And as I think I told you before, the only section in Oklahoma of Route 66 that I have not completed was Tulsa to OKC. In the past, episode 75, if you would like to go listen to it, was basically Baxter Springs, Kansas to the Mother Road Market in Tulsa. And that's actually a pretty good stretch to do. So what we're going to do tonight is pick up at the Mother Road Market. I drove up there yesterday morning at stupid o'clock, basically the butt crack of dawn, so I could get started early and start working my way with plenty of time to explore all the way to OKC. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So if you want to go back and listen, episode 75 will take you from Baxter Springs to Tulsa, and then this episode will pick up from there, and then we'll see how far we go tonight, whether it's OKC or beyond. Couple of quick notes about Route 66. Number one, Oklahoma has, according to my research, the second most lane miles of Route 66 of all the states that Route 66 passes through. I saw somewhere claimed that it has the most lane miles, and maybe it does if you're counting all the realignment miles that still exist. I'm betting there's something to do with a discrepancy there. But like linear miles, it appears New Mexico has 487 or 8 miles, and Oklahoma has 432. So we come in a very solid, respectable second. It's a boatload of Route 66 miles. And also some tips on researching Route 66 before you go drive it. It can be incredibly complex. I'm just going to be honest with you. I mean, Route 66 was cobbled together from the start of already existing roads. And over time, as improvements happened, as bypasses happened to make roads more drivable, as technology evolved from horses and buggies and Model A's and Model T's into the cars of the 50s and 60s, into the boats of the 1970s and 80s, it changed a lot to accommodate different styles of traffic, different kinds of driving, just better equipment to build roads, for God's sakes, better ways of paving roads. So there is a lot of Route 66 out there in multiple alignments, and it gets confusing because sometimes you'll find these alignments that look like they're going somewhere, and you go explore it and it dead ends in literally like a guardrail, and then the road's just gone out in the field somewhere, and God knows how far you are from the current alignment of 66 you just got off of. So I heavily suggest looking at your route ahead of time. Nobody really likes to research. That takes away a lot of the fun of adventure. But at least a glancing blow of research, just peruse it, take a look, see what you can find, see what other people have marked and talked about, because it can quite honestly get complicated. Sometimes you'll find yourself on a stretch of 66 and you're like, this is boring. There's nothing happening here. Only to find out the original route is a half a mile from you, real close, running parallel, but over there's where all the abandoned buildings are. And it's a little complicated. So just do some research ahead of time. Just take a good look, get an idea. And here's a tip. See if you can find, because sometimes you want to follow 66 in Google Maps. If you've got it set up to find the fastest route, the most efficient route to avoid toll roads, whatever, that plays in. And it will not take you where you want to go. And what you might want to do is go in. This is something I utilized yesterday, is find spots along 66 in strategic places, and you'll figure it out. You know how to use Google Maps. Like, okay, well, it's wanting to take me over here and route me on to the turnpike. I want to keep following 66, which is about to head south. Just find a little store or something on Google Maps in the town just south of where it's trying to cut you off and add it as a stop. You don't have to stop there. Just add it as a stop in Google Maps to give it a pin in the map where it's going to force you to keep going. And you can just do your way through the map as you go like that, picking little spaces. And all the better if you find places and you're like, oh, we definitely need to stop here, 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 and here. Put them all in as a route and it will keep you on track. That said, Route 66 through this portion of Oklahoma was actually really well marked and really easy to follow once you're on it. But we're going to get into all of that tonight. But just up front, do your research and understand there are multiple alignments. And we're going to talk about that in a little more detail when we get into OKC towards the either end of tonight's show or the midway point, depending on how things are going. So let's get started. I picked up yesterday morning at the Mother Road Market. Again, go back to episode 75 if you want to hear all about Mother Road Market and the Desert Hills Motel where we stayed that night in Tulsa, which is a Route 66 icon. You can go back to episode 75 and check all of that out. But we're picking up Mother Road Market, and I took off from there. And the first stop I came to, which I went to the last time I was there, but it was after hours, so it was closed. And I was able to get some cool photos. It's right across from the big Meadow Gold sign in Tulsa. Big neon signs. Beautiful for photography at night, but also during the day, as I found out yesterday morning. But right next to it is a place called Buck Adams Curios. And what Buck Adams Curios is a little Route 66 kind of niche shop. And it was really cool. And the lady who was running that shop was absolutely amenable to all things. She was super fun to talk to. And it is a really cool little shop. It is perfect for photography. Essentially, there are a bunch of what was known as the muffler men that went up along Route 66. I believe it was in the 70s. Don't quote me, and it doesn't matter that much, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it. But 60s, 70s, or 80s, a bunch of what they called the muffler men went up, and they were giant, like 20-foot tall statues of these guys that would be holding mufflers, and it was to advertise for a muffler shop, advertise for a place to, oh, your car broke down on your road trip. Come here, and we'll service your car. Well, those were very iconic on 66 in their day, and so some of them have been being repurposed or recreated to kind of tap into that nostalgic feel. And they have one there, but it's updated into more of a sci-fi kind of. It very much fits the 50s vibe. If you think of like Buck Rogers, which there you go, that's probably where Buck Adams came from. But like Buck Rogers, and you think of all the different kind of sci-fi shows that were starting to really take over American consciousness in the 1940s and 50s and 60s. The atomic age really brought about, space travel age brought about a shift in American, worldwide consciousness about how things are, or how things could be. And so you got a lot of TV shows and books and different media types that came out that had this kind of fantastical world of a future where men were walking around in space helmets in outer space and colonizing the moon and Mars. Not that much different from today, as I sit here and think about it. But they have this muffler man who's got his little space helmet on, and he's holding like a rocket ship, which would be very iconic. It looks very iconically like a child's toy from the 1950s. A spaceship would have looked almost like a V2 rocket, like a German V2 rocket. But they've got that outside, and they got a rootin' tootin' cowgirl out there. She is long, tall, cool drink of water. Let me tell you that. Got her cowboy hat, got her cowboy get up on, and I'm pretty sure she's slinging a 6-shooter. Anyway, it's great photography. It's a great little shop. They've got some really, really classy little tchotchkes. The kind of things like if you're going and you want stickers or magnets or lapel pins or all the fun things you like to pick up to kind of commemorate your travels, they have really good ones, really classy, really professionally done ones. So it's a really good shop for that. Like, you will see on Route 66, because we are in the American South. As a Southerner, I speak from knowledge, direct knowledge. You will find a great many curio shops that are not so classy. You know, they might involve a lady on a motorcycle with strategically placed cue balls or 8 balls or, pool table balls. It's the kind of stuff that you don't want to have to explain to your kids. For some reason, we have lots and lots of grown humans in the South who still find things that only 12-year-olds find amusing. They still find them amusing. So Buck Adams does not have any of that crap. They have really good stuff. And so it is a good place to stop. From Buck Adams, you travel on, and you're going to catch, as you go through this main street, this main drag of old downtown Tulsa. I guess it's old downtown. It is the main drag, though. It's Route 66 from the day. You'll find a few signs as you go. There's a few sculptures as you go. But what you're shooting for after Buck Adams is you're going to find your way to the Arkansas River and the old bridge that crosses the Arkansas River. And what is there is called the Cyrus Avery Centennial Plaza and Bridge. Basically, the old bridge you cannot walk on anymore, but it is, I don't want to say preserved, but it has been left in place extant, and it is fenced off where you cannot cross it. However, there is a pedestrian bridge that you can walk across behind it to go all the way across the Arkansas River down to the other end. But the Cyrus Avery Plaza itself, Cyrus Avery, they have called the father of the Mother Road. Of course, people in Springfield say that's the birthplace of Route 66, and Cyrus Avery supposedly was the brainchild of it, but he was in Tulsa. Anyway, there's a lot of people compete who like to be the originators, the origination point of Route 66, right? But this guy was, without a doubt, absolutely instrumental in getting some things done with Route 66 and making sure it came through Tulsa. So they have this memorial plaza. It's got a really cool sculpture. It's got all the flags of all the states that Route 66 passes through, kind of in a half-moon ring around this really cool sculpture. And the sculpture is meant to represent basically the time period where Route 66 came into being, the late 1920s, right? 1926. And what it is it's someone in a model whatever car. I'm not a car guy. It's a Model T, Model A, Model whatever. Don't care. Doesn't matter. But a man and his family in this car, and they've crossed paths with a man driving a buggy or a wagon with 2 horses, and the 2 horses have spooked and they're reared back, and the man in the buggy's reared back, and the guy stepping out of the car like they're about to have, it's depicting the first ever road rage incident. It's pretty much what it's depicting, but it's very classily done. It's a beautiful photography opportunity. It's very, very cool, and it's very meaningful. It's what art is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to represent something and be evocative of something, and what that represents is that changing transportation modes, that time frame where things are changing from what we had always known to what the world was going to be like moving forward, moving from literal horsepower to gas-powered horsepower. It's really, really interesting. They have what they call the neon sign park, which is at the other end of that bridge. I'm just going to tell you, there's nowhere to park. Traveler's tip, travel hack. There's nowhere to park down there by that neon sign bridge or neon sign park. Best I can tell, you have to walk all the way across the Arkansas River on that bridge, which is pretty wide here, to go actually get to that park to take pictures. I drove by it. I did not stop to take pictures because I was on a little bit of a time schedule in my head. I'm like, I got to make time here. I got to make tracks, right? If I want to get to OKC, because there's things I want to see and I want to have time to explore everything. So this is one of the things you're going to run into, guys. This is something you're going to run into. There's too much to do in certain areas. And this is true of anything, not just 66. But I found that getting through Tulsa and out of Tulsa alone could probably take you an entire day if you're the kind of person who really wants to explore it all. Okay. And then there's certain stretches towards the end of this as you get closer to OKC where it starts to take on the same kind of feel. Man, you could spend a lot of time out there. We're going to get into that. But you have to make strategic choices sometimes. And when I realized I was going to have to turn around, go all the way back across the bridge, and then get out of my car, park again, walk all the way back over, and just to get a couple of pictures of some neon signs, I was like, that's going to take 30 minutes minimum. I don't really have that. So I kept on going. What awaits you next after you leave the Cyrus Avery? And oh, one note, Tulsa, I'm calling you out. Whoever in the city is up there, they've got this little walkway that goes partially out over the river next to the old bridge where you can really get a good look at it. And it's designed to be a tribute to the Mother Road, the road of flight. It would have been and was at some time really beautiful. Right now, it looks terrible. It has been graffitied all to heck. It's been treated very poorly. All the lights have been broken or stolen in it. Look, you're getting real Justin from now on. Justin ain't an influencer. Justin is a documentarian. Big difference between the two. One would make me money. This one does not. But I am a documentarian. In Tulsa, I'm calling you out. You got what, 4 months before 2026 kicks in? And we're in the 100-year anniversary. People are already starting to flood out onto that road. Like, it's a thing. It's a cultural thing. People are doing it. People are going to show up. And that is a terrible look on your city. Get down there and clean that up. Put out some cameras, man. Arrest a few people. You know, like, I get it. It's hard to keep up with that stuff. But it's pretty bad. The plaza itself, which is out in the open right next to the road, is in very good shape. Probably because it'd be really hard to get away with doing any damage there. But down under the bridge where that little walkway is, which is what it's designed for, is to showcase Route 66. It's in really bad shape. Y'all better get on that now. Time's a wasting. Clock's a ticking. Anyway, moving on from there, you're going to want to make a stop. As you get down 66 a little bit further, you're still essentially in the edge of Tulsa, just kind of making your way out of Tulsa. You're going to come across a vintage Goodwill store. And that vintage Goodwill store has a vintage Goodwill sign. And it's one of the most photographed signs on the route, just because it's an intersection. Yeah, let's use our sociology brains. We got some intersectionality here. We have the intersection of Route 66 nostalgia, but also something else that occupies a certain space in the American mind. The Goodwill stores. People like to go thrifting. People like Goodwill. It's got kind of that similar vibe, but in a different way. And in this place, the two intersect. We have some intersectionality, and you've got a really cool, historically vibed, aesthetically pleasing vintage Goodwill sign. So keep an eye out for that, and maybe go in and pop some tags. You know, if you only got $20 in your pocket, all you got to do is hunting for a bargain. This is pretty awesome. You should do that. Okay. From there, moving on down the road, you're going to come to the Route 66 Historical Village. This place is really cool. You cannot miss it. You're going to go by a huge oil field, which may be a refinery, but it's definitely a junction point where they're storing petroleum products. If that doesn't scream Tulsa, if that doesn't scream Oklahoma, I don't know what is. Is it hideous? Absolutely it is. But is it on brand? Absolutely it is. And what are you doing when you're traveling? Why do we travel? To experience different places. What's going on in those different places that makes them uniquely those places? Well, one of the things in Oklahoma is oil. And so, hideous as it may be, actually, it's right across from the Goodwill store. It's very fitting. It actually kind of belongs there, it seems like. But you come to the Route 66 Historical Village, you can't miss it because you're going to be greeted by the tallest oil derrick in, I guess, the world? Oklahoma? I don't know. Let's see. The derrick commemorates Tulsa County's first oil well drilled just north of the village. At 154 feet tall, it is the tallest derrick in North America. Can't miss it. They also have a huge Route 66 shield that you can supposedly see from space. I'm curious how they know that. I'm wondering if they've gone to space. Maybe they contracted Buck Adam to take a little trip and let him know. They're like, yo, Buck, what's up? And he was like, I got you, fam. And that's probably what happened. Or it may just be because they could see it on Google satellite. But either way, apparently you can see it from space. Coolest thing about the Route 66 Historical Village, they have, I count, no less than 2 or 3 signs that are very Route 66 neon-esque vintage style signs. They're very, very, very aesthetically pleasing. They're great for photography. There's a place there called the Red Fork Depot, which is not a museum, as you might think as you're looking at it. It's more of an event center, but it's great for photography because right in front of it, and it was a former depot. and it was repurposed and built onto and cleaned up and made a very beautiful building. And right in front of it is a huge steam locomotive, the Frisco 4500, known as the Meteor. It was used in 1942 through 1950, and it was trains were a big deal in Oklahoma, and it's a very, very big steam locomotive. They've got a Pullman passenger car, an oil tank car, and a caboose, and they're all great for photography. Like, it's really beautiful. Go over to my Instagram, waywardson119, and you will see the pictures I took. Actually, maybe by the time that I drop this, I don't know if I've put them out yet. I did drop a reel that has pictures in there, some video in there, but I don't think I've done the pictures yet. Yeah, I still got to do the pictures. Either way, and whenever you listen to this, go over and check it out, and they will probably be there by that time. So that's really cool. And then the actual visitor center is a filling station in the style of Phillips Cottage stations in the 1920s and 30s. You know, I never thought of this, but those little Phillips Cottage stations, they're definitely very interesting looking. They've got a very European type of look to them, kind of a European feel to them. Never really gave that any thought, but I saw and read there yesterday, it was talking about that design aesthetic was like a response to the fact that all the filling stations that were cropping up in the 1920s and 30s were like nothing more than wood sheds and clapboard barns and tin buildings, and they were really hideous. They were like really hideous. So Phillips was like, "Nah, man, this is we need something that's prettier than this." And they made these really cute little European style cottage buildings that became kind of iconic of their service stations. And you'll actually see a couple, I believe, on any trip down 66. I'm thinking there's one in Baxter Springs, but I'm not certain. So it's really cool. They have free literature, they have free maps, they even have free magnets. Some of their tchotchkes are free. They have stickers and magnets, and they're free. And you should go by and see them because, listen, their greeters were two of the coolest people. I mean, we spent, and you guys know me. What do? I talk, and I talk a lot. I like people, like some people, good people. I like good people. I really like talking to good people. And so the two greeters there were Becky Hatchett and Donna Savage. Becky, Donna. I asked them, I was like, are y'all serious? Hatchett and Savage? Like, is this y'all stage names? Like, do you guys have a band? This sounds like a 70s singer-songwriter duo, Hatchett and Savage. They could probably do it too. Anyway, they were sweethearts. I love talking to them. We spent, I would say, solid 45 minutes, maybe the better part of an hour, talking about all things interp, all things historical, all things, I mean, a lot of things that I don't talk about on here, like politics. We talked about a lot of great stuff, and they were great people, really great people. So you guys need to go down there and pay them a visit. When you do 66, do not miss the Route 66 Historical Village, just on the southwest side of Tulsa. Go see Becky and Donna, if they're there the day that you go by. Who knows? There may be someone else. I'm sure there are other greeters, and they're probably just as great. But go by and see those ladies and put a little tip in their donation jar and help them keep the preservation of all those great buildings and signs and static displays of railroad iconography outside nice and clean and up to date. It's a really, really good stop on the route. As we start moving out of Tulsa, it starts to get a lot more sparse. A whole lot happens in Tulsa real fast. You come into town, you come out of like Catoosa with the Blue Well. Again, go back to episode 75. You come out of Catoosa, you got like the Blue Well. You come rolling into Tulsa, into the Market District. You got the Mother Road Market, which is awesome. You've got neon signs coming out the yin yang to take pictures of. You got Buck Adams Curio Shop. There was another shop, an antique mall right across the way. A lot of cool stuff happening in Tulsa. You get to the end of Tulsa, you go across the market or the Cyrus Avery Memorial Bridge. You go to the Cyrus Avery Park. You get a lot of photography there. You get to check out the Arkansas River. You come out of town. You hit the historical village, and all of a sudden, there's not a lot. You're just driving. From there on to Sapulpa, you don't run into a whole lot. Sapulpa has a pretty standard downtown of almost any little small town in Oklahoma or Missouri or anywhere throughout this stretch. They do have the Heart of 66 Auto Museum, which is something you will want to check out if you're very much a gearhead. If you're into cars, It's a very beautiful, very well done auto museum. And there is a good stretch of the old alignment of 66 just west of town. And understand the alignment you're driving currently is not like a super new alignment that misses anything awesome. It basically parallels the old alignment. And this alignment, I believe, is from the 50s or 60s. So right in the heart of the era that you're looking at. Because keep that in mind too. When you're thinking about Route 66, there are different eras. And the era that everyone is nostalgic for is from like 1946 through like 1965-ish. Somewhere in there is the era that we think of the neon signs. We think of the nuclear family, where everyone's traveling out and going. They've got money, they've got time, they've got opportunity, and everyone's going on their family adventures. This era from the 40s into the early 60s is really that sweet spot for Route 66 nostalgia. And the route that you're driving through this portion of Oklahoma pretty much matches that time frame. So you're not going to be missing anything by missing an old alignment, because the old alignment we're talking about is something more like the 1920s or 30s. And so you're not going to see those awesome neon signs or abandoned service stations out there. So you're not really missing anything. But they do have a good stretch of that alignment just west of Sepulpa. And then you're heading on to Bristow, which again, not a lot going on. This was something that was really kind of stood out to me. You get out in like Arizona, New Mexico, you do find a lot more abandoned structures and buildings. They're sparse and they're spaced out, but you do find a lot more of that abandoned stuff. I noticed on this stretch between Tulsa and OKC, there wasn't a whole lot of that. It's kind of quite a bit of driving in different sections with not a lot happening except that you're on the original alignment and you get to kind of be in that experience. But the stuff you might be looking for visually, it comes in like little fits and little spurts. It's like, boom, all of a sudden there's quite a bit of stuff. And then there's a lot of driving and then there's quite a bit more stuff. So from Sepulpa to Bristow was like that. There's not a lot going on in between the two. But when you get into Bristow, they have an awesome train depot museum. It's really, really beautiful. And they have a lot of really cool stuff. And they've got model trains in there. If you're into railroad history, as I am, it is a must stop on Route 66. It's right there in Bristow. And Bristow has their stretch of 66, comes right through downtown. And what you're getting through Bristow is a whole lot of that downtown vibe from the 19-teens through the 1950s. The old brick facades. It's iconic Americana, downtown America. But again, not a whole lot that's really popping out as far as the kind of iconography you're thinking of in 66. I mean, they've leaned into a few things. You'll see a mural or two here or there. But the train depot museum is one of the main things you're looking for there. And as you come out of there, you're going to run into a place called Anchor 66. And it looks extremely unassuming. What it is it's a restaurant. And from the outside, they're not going like full-on theme restaurant type of place with the Anchor. From the outside, it looks incredibly unassuming. It's pretty plain. Just go to Google and look at pictures of the food and see pictures of the interior. The food looks incredible. The Wayward Son here doesn't know. Why? Because the building looked unassuming. And it was at a weird time in the middle of the day where it wasn't quite lunchtime and it wasn't quite dinner time. And I was really hoping to get dinner at one of the some iconic restaurant along the route somewhere. So I blew right past it. But as I was researching and writing down my overview for this episode, I came across it and I was like, I remember seeing that. It didn't look like much, but then you go look at the food. I missed out. I have to go back. I'm going to go back and I'm going to eat there and I'm going to eat at another place we're going to talk about in a minute. I missed out. I'm not a big foodie, but I do like to work it in to my adventures and I missed out on the Anchor. Just go check it out. But it's a great stop. From everything I can tell from the reviews online, it looks like it's a great stop and you guys need to know it's there. We are definitely past our 30 minutes, so let's take a stop right here. Let's make a pit stop on 66 right here. Yeah, that was contrived. But let's do that right now so we can get a word in from our sponsors. And then we'll come back and we'll start going on towards the rest of the episode. I don't know. Again, where are we going to land? We're going to land in OKC? We're going to land in Texola? Who knows? Come back after the break and we'll find out. What is up, all of you Wayward Souls? I want to tell you guys about our newest sponsor, Bendetti Optics. a brand based right here in the good old US of A, Portland, Oregon, to be exact. And I bought my first pair of Bendetti sunglasses about a year and a half ago and fell in love with them, so much so that I got online and ordered a couple of more pair. And when I did, there was a small shipping snafu, an order fulfillment snafu, and I got on the phone, gave them a call, and guess what? I get a call back from who? One of the big men themselves, right there in Portland, from the top of the chain. Have a great conversation, and we end up starting this great relationship we have. They more than made right the little snafu that occurred, and I am now a huge proponent of them because I can tell you from personal experience they are good people, and they're trying to compete with the big boys out there, coming in at a price point of about $40, but using the exact same frame material, TR90, and the same polarization process as the big guys. As it turns out, something I think we are already probably knew in our hearts, when you buy big name sunglasses, you're buying a big name, not necessarily any more quality than you can get somewhere else, like at Bendetti Optics. They have 29 different styles. They have multiple polarization options for whatever climate you happen to live in, and they back it up with like this lifetime guarantee that if your dog eats your sunglasses, it doesn't matter how you break them, send it back in with a check to cover shipping and handling, and you're golden. You got a new pair on the way. These guys are truly trying to do it right, and they have this philosophy that a really good pair of sunglasses should not cost you so much that you are afraid to wear them. And I think all of us outdoorsmen can relate to that. So if you guys, like me, are very practical and like to get more bang for your buck and wear some great looking sunglasses, check out BendettiOptics.com. That's BendeTi optics.com, or you can go over to Instagram /BendettiOptics. And that I highly suggest, whether you buy a pair or not, just to check out the cutest pupper you will ever see modeling sunglasses. Once again, that's BendettiOptics.com, and make sure and let them know Wayward Stories sent you. And welcome back. Thank you guys for sticking around through our sponsor break. Let's just keep rocking, guys. We're making actually pretty good time tonight. We might make it all the way to Texola. Get a whole episode, get it all wrapped up in one. And that would be a nice little package to put a bow on and call it an episode. So let's just see how it goes. After we leave the Anchor 66 just outside of Bristow, we're going to find our way into a little town called Stroud. And along the way again, it's gotten really sparse. It's a lot of beautiful driving. Like, this is my big takeaway from it. On the stretches between Tulsa and OKC, there's a handful of really neat little iconic, I don't want to say turn of the century. They are turn of the century, but little towns that have downtowns that are very 1940s, 50s, the rock buildings. Some of them go back further, of course, the teens, the 20s, whatever. But just the classic American small town, and a town that's no longer prominent. Some of them are larger, some of them are smaller. They're all kind of pretty, and they've all got little buildings here and there to check out. But when you get to Stroud, you're going to find a place called the Rock Cafe. The Rock Cafe, again, I don't know how good it is, but I'm given to understand from everyone who reports on it, it's amazing. It's definitely a fixture of Route 66. And it's one of those places you want to stop. It's made in a very iconic rock structure building. And the rock was supposedly quarried from the building of Route 66. And they took it and they turned it into a restaurant. And it is famous to this day. Again, I don't know if it's any good because I didn't stop. It was right in between lunch and dinner. It was like 2:30 in the afternoon. I didn't want to stop and eat right then, and I was still sort of on a time frame. There was a place I was trying to get to that I was hoping I might catch a human there. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So I didn't stop. But if you go online, you look at the reviews, you check out everything they have to say, the Rock Cafe is iconic on 66, and it is well loved, and the food looks awesome. Also in Stroud, there's a couple of signs coming into Stroud, or just past the Rock Cafe. There's at least one mural that I remember seeing. Pretty classic old downtown buildings. And then there's a couple of signs on the way out of town. But again, this stretch of 66 between Tulsa and OKC, it's like there's these awesome little small towns that dot the landscape. Very iconic Americana, but there's not a whole lot of abandoned 66 style structures you find in the spaces in between. But my big takeaway is it's a very beautiful, peaceful drive. Very beautiful drive. You're still in the green country of Oklahoma. Remember, east half of Oklahoma is green country. The west half is where it turns into the high plains and the desert, and it gets a little more sparse. Very green, very beautiful drive. From Stroud and the Rock Cafe, you're going to head on to a little town called Chandler. And Chandler's got this really cool interpretive center. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the cover of the brochure here. That is a 1938, 1939 National Guard Armory building. For any of you who are very much into history or have lived in any small towns anywhere, especially in the South, you'll know what the old National Guard armories look like that the WPA built in the 1930s into the 1940s. And they have an interpretive center housed there. And it's a great little interpretive center. They have a lot of cool stuff inside. They have several videos that will play. They've got all kinds of ways to recline. You can sit on, actually, let me tell you here. There are 6 video stations and a cozy theater entrance, the individual experience with state-of-the-art technology. The glitter-speckled vintage-style motel beds bring a whole new meaning to the term rest stop. Let's see. It's 1937. It's the WPA building. Your Route 66 journey takes place from the seats of a Model A Willys Jeep, and a Ford Mustang, and from these relaxing motel beds. What that means is they have several theater-style seating areas in here, and the seats they used are from a Model A Willys Jeep, and a Ford Mustang. So that's very on brand for Route 66. And they have a great museum gift shop. They have an excellent gift shop. This is very much like Buck Adams. They have some really good stuff, and they have a lot to choose from. Whether you like stickers, whether you like curios, it does not matter what you like, 66 style. They have it, and they have multiple versions to choose from. This is the thing that always gets me into trouble on road trips. I can plan a cheap road trip, but I'll spend $50 on lapel pins for this big project I have in my mind that I will complete someday. But it's a great stop in Chandler. And in Chandler, there are a few other places to get photography. There's some old filling stations that you'll see. There's one, and I can't quite place where it was. I feel like it was just outside. We may need to step back before Stroud, and it may have been right after I passed the Anchor in that small town just outside of Bristow. But there's a small gas station that will be, at some point, a future interpretive center, at least according to the sign outside. But it's an old gas station. It's got the old pumps, and it's a great place to get a picture of you and your ride outside in front of the pumps if you're into that kind of thing. And if you're not into trying to show the world how awesome you think you are, you can just take a picture of the building itself and share that with the world and leave yourself out of it. But again, that's up to you. From the Chandler Interpretive Center, stepping back up to Chandler, we're going to move on. There's a small town called Warwick along the way, and they have the Seba Station Motorcycle Museum. If you're into motorcycles, there are plenty of you guys out there and gals. They've got a really beautifully done little motorcycle museum inside of an old gas station, and it's a neat little building in of itself. It's a great little place for a photograph. Now, we get to one of the reasons I wanted to do this stretch of Route 66. Just outside of the town of Luther in Oklahoma, there is a gas station. It's known as the Threet Filling Station. You may remember me mentioning it, or if you went back and listened to episode 75, I made sure and looped it into that episode, even though I hadn't been there yet, just because I discovered it through my research and I felt it merited discussion. Well, I finally got to go there, and this is where I was trying to get to that I hoped I would catch someone there. They're not quite open yet. Let me give you the history, and then I'll give you the current status of affairs. The Threet Filling Station, a historic service station founded in 1915 by Allen Threet Sr., located on U.S. Route 66, the road's only known Black American-owned and operated gas station and cafe, served as a safe haven for Black travelers during the Jim Crow era from threats of violence, including racism and lynchings in sundown towns at night. Focused on ensuring their safety, African Americans used the Negro Motorist Green Book to find businesses such as hotels, restaurants, and gas stations that they could patronize during road trips. The station is physically located between what were two sundown towns at the time. So people of color traveling Route 66 couldn't stay in the hotels of those cities. They couldn't go into the restaurants and so forth. People would come to the station. They'd pull around behind the station because they knew they could be safe there and actually spend the night in their vehicle and then be able to get up in the morning, use the facilities, and get some gas. Okay. What is the Negro Motorist Green Book? From the Library of Congress. An annual guidebook for African American road trippers founded and published by New York City mailman Victor Hugo Green from 1936 to 1967. From a New York-focused first edition published in 1936, Green expanded the work to cover much of North America. The Green Book became the Bible of black travel during the era of Jim Crow laws, when open and often legally prescribed discrimination against African Americans and other non-whites was widespread. Green wrote this guidebook to identify services and places relatively friendly to African Americans so that they could find lodgings, businesses, and gas stations that would serve them along the road. It was little known outside of the African American community. Shortly after the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed the types of racial discrimination that made the Green Book necessary, publication ceased and it fell into obscurity. Okay, so Threet Filling Station in its current status. It is still standing. The descendants of, let me get his name right, Allen Threet Sr., who founded that gas station, it has been in the family all this time, and the descendants still own it, which is awesome, and they are currently working to preserve it, and they have recently received grants through the National Park Service and the Historic Preservation, I think it's the Historic Preservation Fund, and they have been able to restore this building. They are currently in the process of getting it restored. I recently saw on Facebook, I follow them on Facebook, and I saw where some local business owner who restored vintage things had restored some vintage gas pumps that were congruent with the era of Route 66 and the Threet Filling Station's operation, and he donated them to the station, and they just recently went and installed them outside, and it's freaking beautiful. It's beautiful, and that is a beautiful example of people being beautiful too. And right now, this world needs a whole lot more people being beautiful and a whole lot less people being really, really ugly. That is an example of beautiful people being beautiful. And it's also a beautiful example of historic preservation of something really significant. The only black-owned service station known to exist along America's Mother Road. Get out of here. Really? That is awesome. Why is it not already preserved? Why is it not already preserved? Where's that funding? Oh yeah, it's in a state where we take the Tulsa Race Massacre out of the education curriculum. That's where the funding is. Sorry, not sorry. I'm from Oklahoma. I can say what I want. That's a crap show. But they are doing the work, and they're doing good work. And people are getting on board and doing good work to help them. And I went by, and it's beautiful. I took photographs. I was really hoping I might run into someone there so I could talk to someone. I did not. They're not quiet. I don't know if they're planning to open it as a business again. From looking inside, it looks very nice. They've done a lot of work. It looks like they have things that they could sell. It looks like there are t-shirts up on the wall, like they may be planning to open it as maybe a stop along 66. I really hope you guys are. If you ever hear this episode, I really hope you get that guy open. I hope you get it open for 2026, and I hope you make a killing. I hope you make a killing and make all that money to restore that station completely and ensure its preservation, because that is an important site for so many reasons in American history. You want to talk about, again, intersectionality? We've got the intersection of pop culture with Route 66 with race issues and civil rights issues, where I mentioned in the last time, and I talked about 66 through Tulsa, and I talked about the Threet Filling Station, the fact that there had to be a green book. The golden age that we all picture in America really only lasted from the mid-1940s through about the 1960s to 70s, and that was only if you were a white American male. Everyone else was still second class. Some people weren't even allowed to buy gas in gas stations. Hence, a place like Threet Filling Station and the need for a green book, intersectionality, pop culture, nostalgia. It is the perfect example of what is the kind of place we need to preserve historically because of the story it has to tell. The story that can serve as a guidebook for us as we all move forward in history. It's a playbook. It's a playbook. We can follow that playbook. We can say, you remember that play? That play didn't work. That lost us a Super Bowl. Hey, this play, though, this play saved our season. Let's go with this play. That's what history is all about. That's what history is all about. Anyway, Threet Filling Station, Threet family, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing to preserve your history, not just for your family, but for all Black Americans and for all Americans in general, because we all need that history. So thank you for doing the work. And for any of you listening tonight, if you want to help them in their work, go online, go to Facebook, find the Threet Filling Station. They have GoFundMes. They have many ways, multiple ways that you could get in touch with them and you could help them to fulfill that dream. So please do. Please do. So, Threet Filling Station, a must stop for anyone rolling down 66, and it is currently in beautiful shape with those beautiful new gas pumps outside. Go get your pictures. Go get your kicks on Route 66 at the Threet Filling Station. But we need to move on. We need to keep going. We're doing pretty good tonight, so we can keep rocking. From the Threet Filling Station, you're going to move on down the road again, pretty open-ended, but you will reach a place where this is an interesting little side note we need to talk about. There's a real good stretch of an old alignment of 66 that kind of bops off of the current alignment after you leave the Threet Filling Station. And you can be looking for that. You will see it on Google Maps. You can't miss it. And you may be able to even find this little marker on Google Maps. They'll take you to this sign. This is a little one-off, but this is really interesting. For anyone watching on YouTube, you're looking at me hold this thing up that says Paul McCartney, and you're like, what the heck? So as it turns out, just 1 mile east of Arcadia, before you get into Arcadia, in August of 2008, Sir Paul McCartney celebrated his 66th birthday by traveling the Mother Road with his girlfriend. He stopped to ask for directions from this gentleman who was named Toby, and he thought it was pretty cool. And so they put up a sign, the site where Paul McCartney on Route 66 in Oklahoma, driving with his girlfriend, and apparently not an entourage because it was him and his girlfriend because he had to stop and ask for directions, stopped and asked some gentleman who lived right there on an old alignment of 66 where the hell he was. How cool is that? Interesting side note. Now we're going to get into Arcadia. In Arcadia, you're going to find the most famous thing that you will find in Arcadia is the Round Barn. It's a big round barn. It is an icon on Route 66, but it's also just an Oklahoma icon. It was built, let me make sure, I believe it was 1898. It is concurrent with basically the land run when we stole all the land back from the indigenous peoples that it was promised to for perpetuity forever. And then we decided, nah, just kidding. We could use that too. So we took it. But it is. I think it's right at 1898 is when the round barn was. Yep, there it is. There it is, 1898. But it's an icon, an Oklahoma icon. It's an icon on 66. It's really cool. They got a cool gift shop in the downstairs with some kind of standard gifts, but they also have a lot of stuff that's sort of like local made looking stuff. It's got a really cool swap meet kind of feel going on downstairs. Upstairs is a big event hall, and if they're not having an event, which typically they're not, you can go up there, lay on your back, and take a really cool picture of this enormous wooden dome above your head. You've never experienced anything quite like it. So the Round Barn in Arcadia, and it's free entry. There's no cost to go in. So you got to go by there and check that out. And then there's another place that's called Pops. And Pops is like a convenience store where they sell a lot of pop. Now there you get into that argument. Is it soda or is it pop? Depends on if you're in the Midwest or from the South. I mean, I don't know. It's a stupid argument because where I'm from, everyone calls it a Coke, even if they're buying a Mountain Dew. I got to go get a Coke, and they come out with a Mountain Dew. I thought you were getting a Coke. I did get a Coke. Oh. It's one of those things. It's one of those things. So anyway, it's a place called Pops. It's an enormous, basically a convenience store, but they have all the pop in the world, and you can get gas there as well. And not just the kind of gas you get from drinking too much pop, but actual fuel for your car. Other things that we have in Arcadia you can check out. What is number 3? The Teuton Pharmacy Building from 1917. Very picturesque. Very picturesque. And it's right there, just 1/2 block off of State Route 66, right there in downtown. Also, just outside of town from Arcadia, there are these ruins of this. I'm not sure. It was is the old rock station. It was a gas filling station, but it was a rock station, and it's just ruins now. And you can stop and you can take pictures, and it's really, really cool. And it's got a story on the front that supposedly has something to do with some lawless endeavors, but you can't read it anymore. It's really, really faded and worn, and I don't know if someone owns it and they just leave it open out of the niceness of their hearts, the kindness of their hearts for people to check out. I don't know if the city has something to do with it. I don't know. But it's really cool, and it's totally worth checking out. Now, as you move on from Arcadia, we're going to take off on to Edmond, Oklahoma. And this is where it gets weird when you're going into OKC. Number 1, in Edmond, you can follow some fairly decent alignment of Route 66, but it gets extremely confusing after that. I will say this. This is up to you. If you're a purist and you want to drive every route mile you can find as original as you can find, then you may want to put up with this. But going into Edmond, it's extreme urban sprawl. It's one of the more upscale parts of Oklahoma City. It's part of the suburbs. It is spread out in all directions, and there's no real vestige left of 66. The road alignment's there, and you can drive on it, but there's not much to look at. It's all Sephora's. That's what I'm getting at. If you want to go down 66 and you want to go into Sephora, if you want to go into a Bed Bath & Beyond, if you want to get some really standard, bland, thematic restaurant food at Applebee's or whatever, or a bunch of the startups that are sort of knockoffs, and it'll be like Buffalo Chuck's. We're clearly a themed restaurant, and we buy our food from the same place that TGI Fridays does, but ours is more special, so you should come check us out because we got a really cool, colorful sign. It's a bunch of that crap. Sorry, Edmond. Sorry. It just is. I couldn't find anything that was very nostalgic 66. It's a place where 66 passes through a major city, and it's a part of a city that has grown and is still growing and is pretty affluent, so everything is new. There's not much left to give you that vibe, and the traffic is what you might expect from an enormous city like Oklahoma City. And this is coming from someone who's a professional driver and has driven in Oakland, effing California, for God's sakes. That was not fun. I was so ready to be out of Edmond by the time I got done last night. Oh my God, I had a headache. It was pretty wild. There is a Blue Hippo in Edmond that has something to do with 66. I couldn't really get a lot of context out of it, except there was like this big blue hippo you can take a picture of, which I did. I have a picture of it. But other than that, this is where it gets kind of weird. Again, there's like 4 to 6 different alignments from different eras through Oklahoma City. Okay. And so it's hard to know which one to take. And like the bunch of them are from the 1920s, and then there's one from the 1930s, and then you get into the one that's more the era that everyone thinks of, the 50s and 60s. But it gets really, really complicated. I suggest you look at Google and you go and you check Google, actually use Google and say, downloadable map for Route 66 alignments. And you'll find several people out there have done some pretty cool work of knocking out, like lining out alignments and turning them into interactive maps, and you can get an idea. And once you go look at it, you're going to see the big mess of what looks like spaghetti thrown at the wall. That's like, here's all the different route alignments of 66 through OKC. I'm just going to give you a travel hack. There's not much to see because it's all been developed into something that's new. There's like a way around it all. You could absolutely just drive the bypass. I forget if it's 325, 375, but you could almost just bypass all this and go find your way down to Lake Overholser and pick back up on 66 there and probably save yourself a lot of heartache. If you're a purist and you want to drive it, go find the maps, figure it out. I couldn't figure it out, be honest with you. And I didn't have the capacity to give a crap enough to figure it out. I tried for 2 hours before I did that on Friday night until my head hurt, and I was like, I'm done. This is supposed to be fun, and this is not fun. I'm just going to go to Edmond to where I last stopped when I picked up to go OKC to Texola, last year this time. I'm just going to drive to that point, and then I'm getting the hell out and I'm going home. It was a headache. It wasn't fun. So I'm just saying, travel hack, maybe this is not what you want to hear out of the old Wayward Son, but just be aware you're not going to be missing a lot if you just kind of skip the jumble of OKC and take the big interstate that kind of loops around the north and western edge, because it spits you out right about Lake Overholser. And Lake Overholser is where you can pick back up on 66 and actually see some pretty good stuff on 66. The bridge itself is this multi-span through truss iron bridge across, I believe it's probably the Canadian River out there. That's great. It's photogenic. There's a park to take a good oblique shot of it. Then you get to drive across it, and then you're rocking on your way on to Texola if that's where you're headed. But I'm just going to be honest. Edmond, not super bueno. And going through Edmond, through the heart of OKC, there is stuff in OKC. If you wanted to make it a destination, you can go see the Oklahoma City Memorial from the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. You can go to the Western, God dang it, I should have wrote this down. I went completely blank. But the National Cowboy and Western Museum, and I think I just said that wrong, but you'll get the idea if you Google it. There's plenty of cool stuff to do. You can go to Bricktown. OKC's cool, but we're on a Route 66 adventure here. None of those things are on Route 66 or Route 66 related, so we're going to skip those because, again, unrelated to our theme for tonight. You know what? Let's keep going for Texola. Let's make a whole episode out of this. It may take us another 20 minutes, and this may be a long episode, but that's fine enough. Let's pick up at the Overholser Bridge across Lake Overholser. I believe it's an arm of the Canadian River. Again, great photography, great oblique shot. I'm going to go ahead and put up my notes here, if you hear paper in the background, to go into this second part. Okay, here it is. I thought I wrote it down. So if you're going to do this, if you were going to hack your way through and skip Edmond, skip downtown OKC, just catch 344 from the Edmond area, and you'll just go all the way around the city. It'll spit you out at the Overholser Bridge, get your photography, and once you're on the road after that, baby, you're free sailing to Texas. And this is a really fun, really beautiful stretch of the drive with a whole lot going on. So let's just keep rocking. First thing you're going to come to after the Overholser Bridge, not far out of OKC, is you're going to come across Yukon, Oklahoma, and you're going to come across the Yukon Mills. And what they are is a bunch of old wheat mills. Apparently wheat was a thing. Can you imagine? Right there on the edge of the Great Plains and the terminus hub of a major city, and right on a rail line that there would be enormous grain silos to store all that wheat they were harvesting out there on the plains. Super photogenic. And if you time it out where you hit those in the morning with the morning sun falling on them, that is the perfect light to take photos. If you go back through my Instagram, you wouldn't have to go very far. I think it was September of last year. You will find my photos of the Yukon Mills and the railroad tracks. And if you're very much into that kind of post-industrial aesthetic photography, it's a great place for those shots. And I even got a old Frisco Railroad spike right there that was just laying in the grass, in the ditch, in the throwaway pile next to the tracks. And I like to collect those little railroad spikes wherever I can find them from those famous railroads like the Frisco. And also right there by it is a museum that was not open the day that I went through there, way back a year ago. But there are train cars that are great for photography, and that museum may be open at the time that you're going through there. There's another hack. Traveling in the South. You're into the South now. You're in Oklahoma. You're into like Southern mentalities, even if you're not really fully in the deep South anymore. So you can expect everything to be closed on Sunday. You should just expect that. Factor it into your travel days. Do some research ahead of time. If you're like, we're going to be driving on Sunday, but we're going to go by this awesome place, Google it and see if it's open on Sunday. Some places are. Bigger places that serve a national audience, a lot of them might be open on Sunday, but a lot of the little stuff is going to be closed because, Lord of mercy, should we profane the Sabbath? We're not opening on Sunday down in these parts. You know what I'm saying? which is so crazy to me. It's crazy. You get all these museums and they want to protect their history and they complain about not having money to protect their history. And they're like, and I'm like, you have 2 days a week that you're going to make money. And none of them are Monday through Friday because people have jobs. The only people you're going to see Monday through Friday are traveling retirees. And listen, I kind of know about these demographics. It's sort of my thing and what I do. There's not a whole lot of them that travel, not enough to put enough money in your little museums to keep you open. So if you're going to close on one of the only 2 days you could make money, it's kind of on you that your budget's half of what you want it to be because you closed the doors for half of those days. Sorry, not sorry. That's just how it is. Them's the facts, baby. Anyway, the photography there at Yukon Mills was super cool. And this is more driving than anything as you're making your way to the Texas line. The Texas line, there's a small town called Texola, and that's where we're going to be shooting for. And that's where Route 66 exits Oklahoma and goes into Texas. And so there's a whole lot of good driving here, but we're also starting to see a difference. From this point, you've come through Tulsa to OKC. You've probably come from further away than that. You probably came through Missouri. You came out of the Ozarks, into the Ozark foothills, into the lower rolling green country, and then suddenly we have transitioned right at Oklahoma City, and we're starting to see plains as we go. This is an ecological region change as you move out onto the plains. The drives get really beautiful, I think. I love this kind of topography. It's very beautiful. It's very soothing. It's great, smooth riding drives. Very easy drives, very nice to look at. If any of you guys use like GoPros on your motorcycles or anything else, there's some great places to get some good footage. It's just a different aesthetic. It's a whole different landscape. As you move out of, let's see, we're leaving Yukon Mills. We're going through, we got train cars, we got places for great photos. We're moving on towards El Reno, and it's a pretty good stretch to get to El Reno. And you're going to get in El Reno, you're going to get a good stretch with some really old buildings and signs. This is something you're going to start seeing show back up that you didn't see so much from like Tulsa to Oklahoma City. We didn't see a whole lot of those old service stations like we would like to, a lot of that abandoned stuff. And when you look at Route 66 in the big picture, from my experience, most of that's out in Arizona and New Mexico anyway. You see the biggest amount of that out there, but you're starting to see it now as you're coming out of Oklahoma City into the plains, the high plains. You're going to start seeing more of that. And as you go into El Reno, you're going to have a really good stretch with a lot of old buildings and signs. I got a lot of good photos through there. Beyond El Reno, you're going to come to a place called Bridgeport. And just outside of Bridgeport, or actually in Bridgeport, you're going to see the Bridgeport Hill Service Station. That is a place for some really great photography. It's a really iconic image from out there on 66 in western Oklahoma. It's still central-ish Oklahoma, but you're moving into western Oklahoma. It's a great place for a photo, and it's an iconic place on 66. As you get past that, you're going to hit a place where there's something called the Bridgeport Bridge. The Bridgeport Bridge is pretty famous, and it spans, again, I believe, the Canadian River. It could be the North Fork, could be the South, it could just be the Canadian. I don't remember, but it spans the Canadian River. And this isn't a place where the Canadian River is a very sandy river that changes its course a lot. It's very whippy. It moves around a lot and meanders. It's what you call a meandering stream. It turns into a braided stream. A lot of cool geology terms going on there, but it means it has a huge floodplain. So you need a really freaking long bridge. And let me see if I wrote that down. I thought I had it somewhere. It appears that I did not. But the Bridgeport Bridge is almost a mile long. I remember that. It's like 4,800 feet, 5,000 feet. It's almost a mile long, something to that effect. It's what they call a pony truss bridge, where it's not one you drive through the old metal trusses. These were very common in the 1930s and 40s, so it's era specific. And it's literally almost a mile long. And it's bright yellow painted. And it's awesome for an oblique shot for photography. I have a really cool picture of it. Go over to my Instagram, WaywardSon119. Go back to last September. Go through the photos from this trip, and you will see this bridge. The Bridgeport Bridge is a very famous bridge on Route 66. Great for photography, fun part of the drive. Beyond that, you're going to come to a place where you will find eventually the ruins of the Hinton Junction Court and Cafe. The Hinton Junction Court and Cafe. It's collapsing, but that makes it all the more fun. This is more like the stuff we were talking about out in Arizona and New Mexico. This is more like those things out there that are really fun and exciting to explore. Be careful. I don't know current status. It's been a year since I was there. I don't know how marked for trespassing it might or might not be. I don't know who owns it. Just be mindful, be careful, and don't do anything stupid. Whatever you do, don't tell them, oh, that wayward son dude told me I should climb all over your crap. Don't do that. But if you do climb all over it, take cool pictures and send them to me on mywaywardstory@gmail.com. But don't tell them that I told you to. Right? Don't do that. But yes, I love these ruins. These very much start to hit at that urbex part of us, that part of us that gets out there. For me specifically, when I think of 66, my mind doesn't think of Northeast Oklahoma or Western Oklahoma so much. It thinks of Arizona. It thinks of New Mexico. Does that make sense? And this has got that vibe. You're starting to get into that vibe. You leave these ruins of the Hinton Junction Court and Cafe. You will come to a place called Hydro. Just outside of Hydro, you will find a place called Lucille's Historic Station. Lucille's Historic Station, Route 66 station, is super cool. It's beautiful. It is a very cool place to get a photo because it's got like a multi-storied aspect to it. It's got the old pumps outside. I got really cool pictures there. It's a great picture. But it was such a classic place on 66, owned by a woman named Lucille for over 60 years. And it was such a fixture and she was such a character, well known on 66, that her original neon sign for Lucille's Route 66 service station is in the possession of the Smithsonian Institute. That's how important it was. That's how important Lucille was. And that's how cool this little building is. So be looking for Lucille's Historic Station. Get online, do some more research if you're very interested in finding out about the rest of that, about the rest of her story, because she does have a very cool story. And once you move past that, once we go on past Lucille's Historic Station on towards Weatherford, Weatherford's a great place to find places to stay. Anytime you're driving along 66, you're going to hit really long stretches where not a lot's going on. Weatherford's a great place to find places to stay. And they've got a good stretch of the old 66, kind of downtown Main Street type of feel to it. But we're going beyond Weatherford. We're shooting for Clinton because Clinton has the Oklahoma Route 66 Museum. It's a large town. They have all the amenities. You want gas, you want food, anywhere from fast food to more local food, more local flavor. It's a pretty good sized town, but they have the Oklahoma Route 66 Museum. And it is packed. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Like, it's really cool. They even have what they call, the Valentine Diner on the museum grounds was once the Porterhouse Cafe in Shamrock, Texas. Shamrock is also in 66, and we'll go there one of these days when I get to do the Texas Panhandle. It was long vacant and greatly deteriorated, but it was purchased by the museum and brought to Clinton in 2002 for a complete restoration, and it can now be enjoyed by visitors for generations to come. Really cool little Route 66 diner that this museum saved from Shamrock, Texas, and it's on the grounds there for you to enjoy yourself. They've got some really beautiful neon. They have really great, it's a beautiful museum. This is a national quality level museum in Clinton because it is the Oklahoma Route 66 museum. Like, all these states have their own state museum, and then they also have their own little mini museums that are in little communities along the way that maybe the communities are in charge of, but the state will have a museum in most of these states. But for Oklahoma, moreover, Oklahoma has the national Route 66 museum because Oklahoma is at the halfway point between Chicago and Los Angeles. Oklahoma has got a wealth of good Route 66 guys. It just does. The state got really lucky on that count, and they're leaning into it. They're putting money into it. And y'all, 2026 comes around. They're already on it. If you drive it today, you're going to find a lot of awesome stuff that's in wonderful shape. If you drive it next year, it's going to be even better. Like, they're working right now kind of feverishly to get that road and everything they want to do with it, from tourist attractions to upgrades to cleanups to anything else, in shape. So next year it's going to be popping out there. So you definitely need to come check it out. But for Oklahoma, you can come into town. We go into Clinton. You got the Oklahoma Route 66 Museum. And again, all the amenities, places to stay, anything you could want. But from there, we're going to want to go on to Elk City. Elk City is where the National Route 66 Museum is located. And Route 66 from Clinton all the way to Elk City is kind of a frontage road situation. You're basically mirroring Interstate 40 the whole way, but it's good driving. You get on that frontage road, you'll be able to take it all the way into Elk City. Go to the Route 66 National Museum and give yourself a whole, at least solid half day, if not longer. You could spend all day there if you're interested. Like, they have a whole grounds like situation with all kinds of buildings. And let me read this off to you. We're going to do it in order. They've got the Transportation Museum and Gift Shop. They have a nice gift shop. Then they have the actual Route 66 National Museum. There's an old doctor's office restored. The old Red Rock Schoolhouse restored. The Musgrove House restored. The chapel, the Old Town Museum, which is more of a local museum, but it's on the complex at the property there. They have a cool caboose that's perfect for photography, as well as a railroad depot. I got some good pictures of those. There's a livery stable, an opera house, a mercantile, the Bruning House, the drugstore, the Farm and Ranch Museum, which is huge and full of all kinds of farming and ranching stuff if you're into that. A blacksmith shop, a windmill collection, and they have an education facility. Y'all, it is a whole multiple city block complex. So the National Route 66 Museum is a must stop for your adventure on Route 66. They've got everything. But moving on from there, we're far out into western Oklahoma now, and we're not far from Texola. What's going on in Texola? Well, there's a historic bridge, the Timber Creek Bridge. You can look that up. But Texola itself is just this really interesting little tiny abandoned town. There's not much left of it, and they have one like little claim to fame there. They've got the one-room jailhouse, and that one-room jailhouse is creepy AF, yo, for real. Like, I'm just gonna be honest with you, I walked into it, it's just sitting there on the corner. It's right across from a house, like living situation. It's just sitting there in this old community, and this is like probably a land run era or just after old one-room jailhouse, and it's creepy. Like, you just walk in, it's just one little 8x10 cubicle kind of thing with bars over the windows and bars on the door, and it has got a whole ugly vibe about it. It shouldn't. It should be sterile as heck. It's out there in the middle of nowhere. It's a simple single room. There's lights coming in from the sun at sunset. Shouldn't be creepy at all, but it's got a whole vibe that I did not care for. But I did get a couple of pictures of it. It's really cool, and it's a must stop. Texola is where you move from Oklahoma into Texas, and Route 66 in Oklahoma comes to an end. And really, the takeaways for me as far as Oklahoma Route 66, we're going to say Tulsa all the way to Texola for tonight. We've managed to get that far. For me, the biggest takeaway is that, like, really starting in Baxter Springs, entering Oklahoma, just coming out of Kansas all the way to Tulsa, there's a bunch of cool stuff. You got the original ribbon stretch of road, the only one left in the United States, just south of Miami. You come on further down, you get the Blue Well in Catoosa, you get into Tulsa, the Mother Road Market, you get the old bridge, the Cyrus Avery Bridge, you got the plazas, you got all these things, and it's like a flurry of activity. And then it spaces out between Tulsa and OKC with a handful of really good museums along the way and a couple of good photo opportunities. You get to OKC, my opinion, skip it, catch 344, pop out at Lake Overholser, pick it back up, and then it gets good again. And you've got these multi-span through truss bridges, and you've got more bridges down along the way. Like the Pony Truss Bridge, the Bridgeport Bridge. You've got a lot of abandoned stuff. It spreads out into the plains, and it gets really fun with all the National Museum, the Oklahoma Museum out there. That's kind of Oklahoma in a nutshell. There's a flurry of activity from where you enter in Kansas all the way to the southwest corner of Tulsa, and then it gets a little sparse with a handful of really excellent stops in there. The Threet Filling Station, the Clinton Interp Center. You hit Oklahoma City, it's like, oh God, what is this spaghetti mess? And you move beyond that, and then it turns into that. That's where you really start to get the Route 66 that you think of from the movies. That Route 66 that's spanning across the high plains that becomes the high desert. And that's what you're starting to see out in western Oklahoma. And that's what you're really rolling into for sure as you hit that Texas state line at Texola. There was something in the little town of Eric, and there's something Sayre. I remember Sayre was a neat town for photography. I didn't make it in my notes here, but you hit Sayre right before Eric, I think. And between Sayre and Eric, there was a handful of really cool photography opportunities. They were really neat for old small towns. They have a very moving out west kind of feel for those style towns. So you're going to want to look for those as you're traveling 66 for opportunities for photography. There's a bunch of ruins in those towns. It's all starting to come back to me now. It's been a year ago that I did that stretch. But you're going to want to look for that in Sayre and Eric. And then when you get to Texola, well, I don't know what to tell you from there because I haven't driven it from there into Texas. So you better be looking for a place to stay for the night, right? That's how it ends, is I'm abandoning you here. Thanks for picking me up when I was hitchhiking back in Tulsa. But this is my last stop, bro. I gotta go. So you're on your own from here, and I hope you have a plan. But I will say, before the end of 2026, I hope to drive my tail out there on a long weekend and spend some time just driving from Texola to, what is it, Del Rio? I can't remember, but driving the Texas Panhandle on 66. I'm slowly but surely filling in all the gaps, guys. The only thing I'm missing right now is the entire state of Illinois. I've done most of Missouri. I have now done all of Oklahoma. I've done at least half of New Mexico, and that leaves bits and pieces. I've done parts of Arizona. Yeah, I've done some big chunks. I bet I've done upwards of 50 to 60% of 66 over the course of my life. So I got to start looking at filling in some of those gaps now. And so I'm hoping to see that happen next year. We're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that the employment gods look down on me and say, oh, nice work on that degree. Here's an actual real job that pays the bills. That would be cool. That would be very helpful in funding my adventures in the future. So that's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different story. And we're going to wrap up tonight's episode right here. It's a long one, but I hope that it's a good one. Thank you guys for coming back and joining me for another episode of the Wayward Stories podcast. If you want to get in touch with me, mywaywardstory.com. You can go over to the website at waywardstories.com. And, yeah, you guys get out there, drive you some 66, start making plans for next year, start getting ready to celebrate that Route 66 centennial and go out there and adventure and chase those horizons and broaden your horizons and drive late in the night out in the desert and listen to Coast to Coast AM and Art Bell because his voice was better than mine. But if they get way too off down the woo-woo trail, you can click over to Wayward Stories and listen to me because that's where I exist. Out there on the interstate in the middle of the desert at midnight. Anyway, until we meet again, you guys be good to each other.